stream, time like a stream, carries our burdens away. Never despair, joys everywhere, love can befriend you today. Free from all care, like birds of the air, soar above griefs and worries, seek joy and be gay. Often on earth, things of great worth, worldly ambitions defy. Sometimes a friend helps us ascend up from life's cares to the sky. Love is a star who's shining afar. It can guide us and help us toward light to draw nigh. Love is a star who's shining afar. It can guide us and help us toward light to draw nigh.
This week's reading is What is Right Action? And it's based on a passage from the Bhagavad Gita, the 3rd chapter and the 4th stanza. The state of freedom from action, that is, of eternal rest in the spirit, cannot be achieved without action. No one, by mere renunciation and outward non-involvement, can attain perfection. Paramhansa Yogananda once explained to a disciple, to attain the actionless state of divine union, you must first be intensely active for God. The key to right action lies in those words, be active for God. Action for God, properly understood, means action in God, service, in other words, performed in the consciousness of God's constant presence and guidance. There is always a temptation on the spiritual path to go to extremes. The devotee learns that God can be found only in inner silence, so he decides, I must renounce all action. Or again he is told that service is purifying, so he cries, let me devote all my time to serving God. The secret of the spiritual life is to balance meditation with selfless service. To serve God enthusiastically while failing to nourish one's enthusiasm with inner peace is like working night and day, while failing to restore one's energy with sleep. Once calmness is lost in a welter of outward activity, soul attunement becomes lost also. Spiritual service lies particularly in the consciousness one brings to one's actions, rather than in the actions themselves. People whose consciousness is centered in their bodies tend to confuse productivity with physical exertion, as though digging ditches were more productive than devoting one's life, as Socrates did, to the serene pursuit of wisdom. People, again, whose consciousness is centered in mere things, confuse true value with profit. To the wealthy burghers of the town of Antwerp, Vincent van Gogh was a failure. His total earnings, even after a lifetime of painting, amounted to hardly $16. Whose, however, was the greater contribution to mankind? Van Gogh's, surely. If we want to please God, our consciousness must be centered in Him. What we actually accomplish for Him outwardly is of lesser importance, for God is always pleased in Himself. He is bliss itself. It is we who must feel His smile in our hearts. We must strive to feel His presence with us, not only in the inner silence of meditation, but during activity. Right spiritual attitude is difficult to maintain if it doesn't spring from an inner upliftment of consciousness. The longer and more deeply one meditates in addition to working for God, the closer he will approach the divine ideal. Indeed, there comes a time on the spiritual path when the balance shifts from outward to inward activity. The practice of meditative techniques important for calming and concentrating the mind become then one's spiritual work. This too is activity and should be performed as an outward service in a spirit of loving offering to God. Meditative service, again like outward work, must be balanced on ever deeper levels of consciousness by the stillness of inner communion. The more deeply one meditates, the less necessary it becomes for him to engage in outward activities at all. At the same time, one must be faithful to one's duties in life. Meditation should not be made an excuse for avoiding dutiful action. A good rule regarding the length of meditation is to meditate as long as circumstances and inspiration allow, and then to carry that inspiration out into activity, consciously impregnating everything one does with peace and joy. As Paramhansa Yogananda put it, be ever actively calm and calmly active. The important thing is to keep the mind alert, willing, and creatively aware. Be always even-minded and cheerful, Yogananda said. If fatigue comes, whether while meditating or acting, never accept the thought that you, in your true inner self, are tired. Never allow yourself to sink into mental dullness or apathy. Tell yourself simply, my body needs rest. One who goes to sleep with the thought of exhaustion will wake up the next morning tired still, no matter how many hours he sleeps in the meantime. But if, despite his exhaustion, he falls asleep with the strong thought, my body needs rest, but tomorrow I will rise again to serve God with enthusiasm, he will awake the next morning completely refreshed. Dynamic vitality, or listlessness, both of these depend on the thoughts one sends or carries with him into the subconscious. The greater the will, Paramahansa Yogananda used to say, the greater the flow of energy. Action for God, when the zeal for it is derived from the joy of meditation, is one of the best ways of stimulating the will and of lifting our consciousness into the dynamic state of bliss from which the entire universe sprang. To act with the consciousness of God's joy within to act with the consciousness of God's joy within is the best way of pleasing Him, whose only sorrow, if we may call it that, is that so many of His human children have closed themselves off from His joy. Thus, through the Bhagavad Gita, God has spoken to mankind.
Hello everyone, so nice to see you all. So great to be here. When you have the fans on in the morning, it doesn't even feel like it's the hot season. It feels great, especially after a rainy night. Someone asked the other day, how can I have a deeper meditation? I'm finding my meditation is very distracted and very feeling superficial, the usual things that we say. But, one good thing to remember about having a deeper meditation is cultivating more stillness of the heart in your life outside of meditation. We often have difficulties come up, conflicts with people, those types of things. If we can practice in those times trying to calm our heart, then you'll find that translates over to the meditation as well. But if life outside of meditation is like this all the time, and then we say, okay, I'm going to sit now, and now I'm going to feel perfect peace, the heart takes a while to settle when the rest of life is combobulated and full of drama and difficulty. So the beauty of this reading, the beauty of this path, is the connection between bringing our meditation into daily life, bringing our daily life into meditation. It's actually incredibly beautiful. And the other wonderful thing is we can say, but meditation is supposed to make me feel less discombobulated in life. So why am I still feeling discombobulated when I'm still meditating? But all we have to do is keep trying. Because God is that conscious force that when we meditate, even if we just try, He comes from above and lifts us up even higher. All we have to do is put that intention out. Lord, I just want to go deep in you. I just want to feel your peace, feel your love and your joy. I'm sitting here in meditation. I'm offering this up to you. And wait for that feeling of Him coming down and lifting you up even farther. Have faith that that is actually divine law. That when we just try, that force is there to draw us up. And everybody here has such a sincere heart. God hears the sincere heart and says, I am going to come and lift you up. But one of the wonderful things about this balance of life and meditation is the continuing deepening of inner awareness, intuition, very practical intuition, and perception of the unseen that is actually going on in many situations. And the more we meditate, the more we gain that perception. And perception turns to pride if the perception is turned inward, on ourselves. So suppose we're having deep feelings of connectedness to God, it's feeling very good, but we then just say, I feel connected to God, I feel He gave me a blessing, I feel I must be special because I had such a great thing happen, then that turns to pride. But when we take that perception and use it in our life, then it becomes selfless. So for instance, we have that perception, we feel that deep connectedness to God in our meditation, and we begin to also feel that deep intuition that comes with having that connectedness with God. And then when we bring that deep intuition into life, there's so much to perceive. When someone comes at us with maybe some negativity or negative emotions, rather than react, we might be able to see their motivation. And Swamiji wrote very often about how if we can just broaden our understanding of others and where they're coming from, then and come more from the heart in that way, then their actions don't have to feel like a threat. Then we can perceive, that person is angry right now because they feel threatened. Or that person is angry because they feel wounded. Or something difficult happened in their life recently, and that's why they're acting that way. And then it kind of separates us. We no longer feel like they're doing it to us. Instead, it's just coming from them because of their circumstances. And then that allows us, because we've perceived it inside, to be calm. So see how that works in that way, rather than, the outer way works also. Someone comes at us and we think in our mind, I should be calm right now. That's what my path says to do. Okay, I will be calm. And that's a good start. But that calmness will cultivate, that calmness will come. And then we'll naturally feel that calmness. We won't have to tell ourselves, Master said be calm during this time. You know, Master said that person's just feeling bad, so I don't have to take it personally. That's a start. It's a start to have it up here. But that perception that we gain in meditation comes from the heart. And so those are things that are very helpful. You know, just being guided in what to do next. How often do we wonder and write the list, pros and cons of, I want to do this, but should I? The pros. Keep writing all the positive reasons why I should do that, and then the cons, all the reasons why I shouldn't do that. And if the cons are more, then I won't, and if the pros are more, then I will. You know, we're trying to figure it out with the mind. But in that perception that we gain in meditation, then we learn that when we offer that up to God in our meditation, then we can get the answer. But it requires that stillness. And again, that stillness will come from meditation, but it comes from practicing stillness in life. As Master said, actively calm and calmly active. Now that doesn't mean we're sitting at our desk and we type like this. You know? But there's this calmness. There's this cultivation of love and joy in the heart that happens while we're going like this, while we're going to the next thing. Maybe before we go from this to the next thing, we take a deep breath. And then we say, hello, I'm still there. Are you still there? I'm connected to you. I felt you in meditation this morning. It felt really great. Thank you. And now let's see what else we're going to do. What's next? And having God, the pride part that gets developed when we meditate and think I, we're not in partnership with God anymore. We lose that partnership. We think I, and give me more. You know? I had a deep meditation, I want more. No, that's a good kind of selfishness to have. Yes, I do want more. But when it's just I, then it just, you'll find it doesn't grow as much as when you're practicing in this other way. And when we kind of let go of the I, and allow this flow to happen in our lives, then bliss expands even more. You know, we may feel bliss in a meditation and want to hold on to that experience. And it's like, but last week, and then but last month, but last year I was feeling that bliss. And it's like, let it go. Now it's nice to remember it. And when you feel it, feel the memory of that. Feel how wonderful it is. It's an affirmation that we already know we are one with God when we have those experiences. But let them go so the new ones can come. Don't just hold on to a deep experience and say, you know, I once had this deep experience and so I know that I am connected to God. You know, and then that experience gets farther and farther away. Well, we want to have an open heart for the new experiences to come. And so as we live our life, actively calm, calmly active, and then bring that into our meditation, develop that perception, you know, understanding people's motivations, understanding our own motivations. It's really great when you gain that perception. When you have a reactive moment, say you get angry, or you get unhappy for some reason, or afraid, or jealous, or whatever it is, then it's almost as though that perception helps give instant feedback. Because when we are in that flow and when we are in that feeling of calmness, the heart has a certain feeling to it. And when the emotions get upset and we're used to that calmer feeling, then it's very uncomfortable having the emotions going like this. And then we say, what's going on? What can I do to calm this? Not stop it, not just slam it shut, but, oh, something's going on here. What is it? And you may go to meditation, you may write in a journal, you may talk to a friend to explore what might be going on with you. But in any case, then we don't blame those feelings that are happening on someone else. We instead notice these feelings are happening inside of me. Because everyone else can be going crazy and wild. And we don't have to be crazy and wild also. We just don't have to. I had a boss once, early on in engineering, and he was very enthusiastic. And if you were like this too, then he thought something was wrong with you, and people had to act this way. And I remember just thinking, I feel happy inside. Do I have to be that way? And so I really worked on just trying to support him and still be myself in terms of how I would be. But it took a little while before he could trust that my, wasn't there, not because I didn't feel enthusiasm, but because I just wasn't going to mirror his, very outward way. I had already been a part of Ananda. I was already meditating. I just didn't want to do that. And so other people out there can be doing that. We can still feel joy and calmness and enthusiastic for a project without having to do that. Or maybe it's our nature to be more enthusiastic. That's okay too, as long as we're just in our nature. And anyway, we really learn through that perception. That perception allows you to hear the wisdom of God in difficult situations. Like suppose you're in the car and an accident is about to happen. You can hear that and act on it. When life is full of ups and downs, you can't hear that wisdom so well. You can't hear what God is trying to help you do when everything is going like that. But that perception that we develop in meditation transfers over, and then we hear that wisdom. And then other times we find we don't even have to say anything, where that perception helps us feel that deep love and bliss that's in God, and it transfers over to our life, and suddenly we are just radiating that love and bliss from inside. We don't have to say, I'm feeling love and bliss today, let me give it to everybody. Instead we feel that love and bliss. We don't even have to say anything, and it radiates out. When I was a lot younger, I was always concerned about what should I do with my life? What should I do with my life? How can I do what God wants me to do? And I wrote to Swamiji about that, what should I be doing or something like that. And he said, it doesn't matter what you do as long as you're bringing joy to others. That's what he said. And I was talking to some friends in the U.S., and it was interesting because this friend had a job change that went from kind of being an underling to a boss. And his wife was saying, finally, he's doing what he's supposed to be doing with his life. Finally, and I just thought, what we do with our life changes. You find out very soon after you've graduated from college. The average person changes their career 5 times in their lifetime. 5 times. So, okay, in that moment, we might feel like we're doing the right thing finally. But it's just an outward thing. The right thing is when we're feeling that joy and passing it on. That's the right thing. It doesn't matter what the thing is, outwardly. It's that attitude of joy that we're doing. Now, of course, some things go against nature. Swamiji likes to give the example of how he was doing different jobs in the ashram, and when it came to doing carpentry work, he said every few times he did hit the nail, but the rest of the time it was on his fingers. So, okay, that wasn't a good match. And we find those things, not a good match. When we moved back from India to the village, I got 2 jobs because there wasn't one full-time job. So I worked with Crystal Clarity Publishing, but then I worked for our village office, working on a highly, highly technical map program to help with what's called the plan, it's called the master plan for Ananda Village land. So Ananda Village has 800 acres, and everything is mapped out on it. And this is what civil engineers do. They figure out where the waterways are and where this is that and that. So I was working on that map, and it needed to be clarified, and I was taking a GPS out and like trying to figure out where things were. And at the end of every day, my brain hurt because the program itself was so highly technical. And even though I was an electrical engineer 20 years ago, my mind has changed to the point where I just can't think that technically anymore. Now, I mean, I still do computers, I still do websites, all that kind of stuff, but I can't do that intense engineering that requires the equations and modeling and all that kind of stuff. I just can't do it anymore. And I could make myself do it, but the headache I had at the end of the day, I had to admit, I just can't do this. And I felt kind of bad because they needed someone to do it very badly, and no one else had come along until I came along who could do it. And I was in a quandary because I was also working, the guy who was my boss, he was a good friend. I didn't want to let him down. And I just didn't know what to do. And it wasn't that I disliked it. It wasn't like, well, I don't like it, I just don't want to do it. It wasn't that, because I didn't want to be in a like or dislike. As soon as we're in a like-dislike mode, we quit that and we do the next thing, and then it's another thing we don't like. You know what I mean? So I don't like to base my decisions on like and dislike, because when you do, you just get 10 more dislikes in the next situation. So I tried to clear myself of the likes and dislikes in the whole thing, and it really did come down to I just didn't feel like it was right and my ability wasn't there. So I presented to him this, and he was not happy. He was very disappointed, and it was coming from his fear of who is going to do this then, because he had a lot of stuff he had to do. He's the manager of the whole village, and so who's going to do this? Well, it turns out my friend's husband, I don't remember how I got that Jerry could do this. I was talking to my friend, and she was talking about her husband was doing this technical thing on maps, and he was an engineer also. He was a chemical engineer, but he also did manufacturing engineering. He did a lot of that stuff. And he was just doing he had quit that stuff to take a break for a while. And so he was doing tutoring and very lightweight stuff that didn't require, but somehow a conversation with her, and I just got this huge inspiration in meditation. Ask if Jerry can have this job. Maybe he can do it. And, I would have never even thought of him, but it just came in. And so I asked, and he was willing. And he is doing that job still and did it really great, and he loves it, and it gave him a great connection with the man who's the village in charge of the village, and it opened a doorway for him, for people to get to know him better, and it was just fabulous. And so there was that discomfort, but it really, I knew I had to be true to myself without the likes and dislikes, and then it worked out way better than if I would have stayed in there and kept trying at it. And it meant I had to cut my salary in half also. But then the other job opened into more of a full-time position. So it worked out, and it was painful. I like what Swamiji wrote in the affirmation. Was it the affirmation? Or no, Living Wisely, Living Well. That when you have a disappointment, it's really a doorway to something new, a window to something new. And I have a friend right now going through a really, really difficult time, got fired from a job. And when I heard that, I thought, he hasn't been very happy recently. Maybe this is an opportunity for something much bigger and better. But you see your friend just going in pain. I hate the fact that this is happening. I hate the fact that this is happening. But I really feel, and I told him, this could be a great thing. There could be much bigger and better things that are going to happen for you. And when something really difficult is happening, we need to sit in meditation and say, why, Master? And then that wisdom, God comes through as wisdom and explains it to us. I do not know why change has to be painful, but it is. Why there has to be disappointment in order to find that window. Why? Why does there have to be unhappiness about the way a change happens? Maybe if suppose we're in a job, we're about to be fired, maybe if we perceive in ourselves, oh, I think my time is done with this job, and then we quit before we're fired. Okay. Maybe if we're meditating really deeply and we say, oh, God is talking to me now and saying that He's got something bigger and better for me coming up. And I need to just quit this right now, and something new is going to happen. But we very rarely get that message. So instead we have to go through the painful process of someone else, and then the bigger and better thing happens. It's so hard. Why do we have to go through that pain? I don't know. Master said he used to ask Divine Mother, why bring pain on people? Why do we have to go through pain? Somehow that pain is just the ego. That pain is just us trying to hold on. But that's the other wonderful thing about meditation and developing this perception. Because this perception separates us from that feeling that we are this body, that we are what we have, that we are, all the things we control, that's who we are. Slowly we separate from that, and we gain that distance, but also compassion, and also just detachment from, okay, a change is trying to happen. It hurts, but I'm going to see what's really trying to happen here. I'm going to, rather than go out and, this is horrible, meditate and say, what is trying to happen here? What am I trying to understand here? What do you want me to get here? We're in partnership together. I know you're not against me. I know you're with me. And have that partnership with God that's developed in that perception time in meditation. Really try and develop that partnership where you bring God into every decision, every action, every meditation. Bring Him in and be in contact. Have that conversation. We've talked about practicing the presence of God by trying to have an outward conversation in the mind, not when we're in meditation, but just being in contact with God as every moment as much as possible. I'll end with a point that Swamiji made also, is that when we are in meditation, very often we say, okay, this is a 20-minute meditation, or this is a 45-minute meditation, whatever it is. And then, ding, 45 minutes is over. But we feel a bliss happening that's not done yet. Swamiji says, go with it. You know, try and hold on to those times. Don't cut the bliss off when it happens. I don't know why, but doesn't it seem like sometimes that bliss only comes at the end of a meditation, like at the very end? I think that means don't end yet. Sometimes it takes a lot of minutes of getting the cobwebs out of the way, and that surrender. Maybe it's that surrender of, it's almost over, you know, and then we relax, and then, you know. But then try and have it go longer, you know. Go as long as that bliss is there. Don't jump up out of that meditation. Try and go with it longer. And allow it to be, allow God to kind of push you around a little bit. You know, if He wakes you up at 3 a.m., go with it. You know, don't say, I'm too tired. Whatever it is, it's really easy to do. Believe me, I know. Try and, as soon as we invite God in, we're accepting the consequences. Because it means He then has control. And then it means we may not get to do everything we want to do because we're hearing the guidance. And we know we're supposed to follow it. And then sometimes we get into these modes where, nah, I hear the guidance, I don't want to hear it right now. And He'll sit and He'll wait patiently. But here we are, most of us Kriya Yogis, let's go for it. You know, that's what we're all here for, is to go for it. Go for it together. You know, this group that's developing here is here to support our Kriya Yoga practice and to go for it. Everybody here gets woken up by God at 3 a.m. at times and goes, or, you know. We have support for that here. We understand what's going on. We may not know the person sitting next to us really well, but on a soul level, we get to know each other very well when we meditate together. And that develops spiritual community. I'll end with this Whispers from Eternity. It's called Prayers on the Beads of Love. I tell my prayers on the beads of love, strung with my devotion. I direct them beyond all names, God, Spirit, Brahma, Christ, Shankara, Krishna, Buddha, Muhammad, for all names are thine, and I shun no name, for I know thou dwellest in all forms. In thy cosmic dramas on the stage of time, and in thy myriad acting roles, thou hast assumed innumerable names. Behind them all too, I know thy one changeless name, eternal, conscious, self-existent bliss. Many times have I played with thee, many songs of thine have I sung. On the ocean bosom of thy eternal life, I've been nurtured by thee as a tiny drop of life. I remember thy warm touch through the centuries, whenever, feeling the chill of separation, I turned homeward to thee. Again, in this daylight of remembrance, let me play with thee, let me sing thy songs.